When you say give them all they want, is there a limit? Do you portion sweets at meal times the way you portion other foods? Can you talk about managing this mindset with grandparents and babysitters? Hey everyone, okay, so we're doing a sweets Q&A. I just got cut off and was having some technical difficulties, so we're gonna start over here. So you guys submitted some awesome questions on my stories and on the comments for my post. I also got some questions via text from some friends, so I'm gonna answer all of those right here. So if you have questions about sweets, how to help your kids ditch the sweet obsessions, how to not pass on unhealthy habits to your kids, how to help them have a healthy relationship with food, you're in the right place. Feel free to submit your questions in the comments box below, but let's jump to those story questions from today. So first of all, when you say give them all they want, is there a limit? I feel like my daughter's sweet tooth is endless. This is a really good question, and I feel like it's one a lot of parents have. Honestly, it was a concern that I had too, even just for like myself. I have a huge sweet tooth, and I feel like I could go a long ways with sweets sometimes. So the fact of the matter is, if you're implementing this for the first time with your child, especially if they're older, if they have some internalized restriction mindsets around sweets, they are likely going to eat a lot the first time you implement it. And that's why it takes a good mindset shift on the part of the parent. You have to make sure that you're prepared for your child to eat a lot of sweets initially when you implement this, but that won't last forever. I know you might feel like your child's sweet tooth is endless and they could just keep going until they're sick every time you offer them unlimited sweets, but that attitude will not last forever. And with consistency, applying these approaches, the ones that I talked about in my swipe through post yesterday, you will find yourself in that moment where when your child takes one bite of cookie and starts eating their veggies, or when your child leaves half of their brownie on the plate, or they don't finish their ice cream in favor of the protein that you serve for dinner. So while you may feel like your child's sweet tooth is endless, with consistency, I promise you won't feel like that forever. It's always important to rule out any underlying medical or behavioral issues when implementing these strategies, but consistency is important, as well as giving yourself a long time to implement this. If you implement all these strategies for a week, you're not gonna see like a huge, profound difference. This is a long game and you need to be in it for the long haul, but I promise you, your child's sweet tooth is not endless. Okay, so next question. At what age do you start this? I currently have a 13-month-old and we serve fruit with the meal but no sugar yet. So this is a really interesting question, and my answer to this is it depends. I think it depends mostly on the family's usual habits and siblings. So with my daughter, we generally avoided added sugar in her diet until she was around 2 years old. Maybe a little bit before that, when we started to introduce sweets. Now with my son, because my daughter is now 3.5 and my son is 15 months old, now that sweets are part of our regular rotation, he definitely notices when my daughter gets food and he doesn't. So we have introduced sweets to him a little bit earlier because I don't want him developing this restriction mindset at such a young age and this like hyper focus on the things that he doesn't get. So we treat sweets like any other food that I serve to him when we serve sweets. And sometimes he doesn't even touch them. My husband and daughter made these really amazing peanut butter chocolate chip cookies the other day, and I put a cookie on his plate and he didn't touch it, and he ate his meat and veggies. So we just keep it neutral with my 1-year-old, and I still implement these strategies for him. Now with my daughter, if it was my first child and there wasn't any siblings, I would probably wait until it's a little later, but this really just depends on your family. If you're eating sweets a lot in your house, you eat a lot, or you make a lot of baked goods, for example, and you enjoy dessert in your house, and your kiddo sees you eat those things in front of them all the time and they're starting to get antsy and want them, that's a time when I might consider either adjusting how and where you eat sweets or introducing them at an earlier age. So that question really depends, but that's a really good question. So next, links to articles to support your method. Partner won't believe it until he reads articles on it. Love this question. Really respect this attitude because this is the same attitude that I have. I am gonna put together maybe like a post on this, so stay tuned, but it'll take me a while. But yes, there is plenty of research to support all of these behaviors, most predominantly in the research on restriction contributing to eating disorder risk. That's a really big area of research that I focus on a lot when I'm kind of digging through PubMed. So, okay, worried about unintentionally passing on my past not healthy food mindset onto my kids. So if you're concerned about this, which a lot of the parents on my account are, you're in the right place. Working on this healthy mindset and healthy relationship with food as young as possible to kind of ditch the diet culture mentality is a great way to do this. Know that you don't have to have a perfect relationship with food in order to help your child have a healthy relationship with food. You can both work on it together. So just kind of keep that in mind. But the fact that you're here and you're asking the questions tells me that you're doing good work and you're a good parent. So make sure you give yourself a pat on the back because it's tough. All right. My kid eats so much better without sweets, but he definitely has a sweet tooth. Serve it anyways. So I would encourage you to think about, to consider your mindset with this question. So when you say they eat better, I think you mean they eat more vegetables or more protein-rich foods or less processed foods. That's not surprising because as humans, we are hardwired to enjoy sweet and fatty things. That's just the way that a lot of us, or that's the way we're built evolutionarily. Some people, don't enjoy sweets as much as the next person, but for the most part, sweets and fatty things taste good. So it's not surprising that if there's no sweets, they eat a lot of the other stuff. But with consistency of implementing these strategies that I talked about in that swipe through post, so making sure that we have a neutral mindset, language, and attitude about all foods, I think you'll find that this won't be the case forever. So keep implementing these strategies and remember it's a long game. So somebody just asked, how can you talk about managing this mindset with grandparents and babysitters? This is a really, really good question. I think it depends on your relationship with these people. So for me personally, I'm more of a direct person when I'm talking about issues that I might have with like a grandparent. So I would just bring it up and say, hey, this is really important to me that little Johnny has a healthy relationship with food, especially considering you could insert like if you have a history of eating disorders or especially considering all the diet culture that they're exposed to at school, whatever. It's really important that he has this mindset growing up. This is how we're choosing to feed our child, and then give them some examples, because oftentimes in my experience, when I deal with the grandma effect, which is like grandma's pushing one more bite, grandma's pushing veggies, grandma's like limiting sweets, etc. And I say grandma, but it really is any family member. It's almost always out of love. These grandparents or babysitters or whatever are doing what they think is the right thing to do to help your child be healthy. So really it just takes a little bit of education. If you then find that you've educated, you've told them your wishes and they're not respecting their boundaries, then you need to be more firm and say, I'm the parent, this is how we are choosing to raise our child around food, and I need you to respect that. And, kind of end that there. You can also send them my content. I have a bunch of YouTube videos that if you want something to like educate these people in your life, you can send them that. I have a partner guide for how to implement healthy relationships with food on YouTube, so you could try that. Hey, Steph is waving to me. This is so funny. I love these live features. Okay, so I'm gonna answer some more of these story questions and then I'll pop back into the comments. So let's do one more story question here. How to handle grandpa. Okay, this is a great question. That is a segue from what we were just talking about. How to handle grandpa bringing Kinder Surprise chocolate weekly. So this is like a fine balance here, because I know for me personally, I have some really amazing memories with my grandparents around sweets. Like my Nana would always bring us those donut holes, and we ended up calling them Nana donuts. I still call them Nana donuts. Or like my grandma loves chocolate, and so I have lots of memories like snacking on chocolate with her. So it's not a bad thing to have like a special bond and connection around certain foods, especially with grandparents. This can create really awesome memories, and really in our culture, in most cultures around the world, there's a lot of exciting celebrations and connections that we have with other people around food, like birthday parties and weddings, and those all have food in them. So it's normal to have some excitement and connection around food. But what you want to do there is emphasize like the time also spent with the grandparents. So the grandpa is not just showing up, giving the Kinder Surprise and leaving. Like, we're bringing Kinder Surprise, we're eating it together, we're having fun, we're looking at the toy, we're playing with it, and it makes it really special and fun. Might your child be a little hyper-focused on Kinder Joy? Maybe. But look at all the awesome memories that they're building. And that might, for you, just outweigh any of the slight hyper-focus that they might have on chocolate. So just keep that in mind. It's really a balancing act. There's no way to do it perfectly, and you kind of have to adjust for every family situation. Okay, so I'm gonna answer a question from the comments now. Let's see. Do you portion sweets at meal times the way you portion other foods? Wondering about giving extra servings of sweets at dinner time. My oldest would have many, many servings if allowed. Yes, I do portion sweets at dinner time, just like I portion other foods. So I, plate their foods or allow my kiddos to fill up their plate, and then I allow them to serve themselves multiple servings. And I do the same for sweets until it's all gone. So whether we have unlimited amounts for that day or whether there's a limited amount for any other food, they can have as many servings until they're full or until that food is gone. And I try to not limit the sweets more than the other foods when I choose to serve the sweets. So keep that in mind. I don't always serve sweets with meals. Sometimes I serve sweets with meals, and when I choose to serve sweets, yes, I portion it the same way and I treat it the same way. If you're just implementing this for the first time, your child is gonna eat a lot of sweets. It will happen, but it won't last forever. Okay, so let's see. What to do if you don't eat sweets regularly in the home? So I'm gonna kind of answer some of these questions. I have these written down on a paper because they're from the comments. So what do you do if you don't eat sweets regularly in the house? This is a family dependent situation, so you need to evaluate, is your child having a hyper focus on sweets? If they are having a hyper focus on sweets, then I would recommend increasing the frequency that you serve sweets. If they are not having a hyper focus on sweets, then you don't need to increase the frequency. You just need to adjust this to your family's lifestyle. If you say, well, that's like a whole shift in my family's lifestyle, we don't do sweets in our house, then you just have to evaluate the pros and cons of that. Your child is probably gonna have a hyper focus on sweets when they're exposed to it outside of the home. And if that's okay with you, then that's your prerogative to make that decision as a parent. It's all about weighing the pros and cons. There is no one perfect way to do this. For our family, my husband loves to bake, so we do serve sweets regularly. I asked him the other day how often he thinks we serve them, and I think it's around 1 to 3 times per week, with an emphasis on weekends, but I do know that they get it at school. So it's not like my daughter is only getting sweets 1 time a week at dinner. She gets sweets at school too. So, she gets exposed to it in a lot of different environments. But if your kid is hyper-focused on sweets, you don't serve them in the house, and you want them to not be obsessed with sweets, then yes, I would recommend serving it more regularly. Okay, what about snack time? Do we always give something healthy with a sweet, or you just offer like one thing, something healthy or a sweet thing? With snack, I rarely offer one food. I usually try to combine at least 2 of the 3 of the following: a healthy fat, a fiber or protein source. And if I offer something sweet, I try to offer them either a fiber or a protein source of something that they enjoy. So like if you offer, let's say like a fruit roll up and a veggie they hate, well, they're not gonna eat the veggie. They're just gonna eat the fruit roll up. But my daughter loves bell peppers, and she especially loves bell peppers when I cut them into fun shapes using our little mini food cutter. So if I were to offer like a cookie for a snack, I would also offer her bell peppers cut into fun shapes, because I know that will help her increase her excitement about the other food, and she'd be more likely to eat that too. So usually when I serve sweets at a snack time, I always serve a protein or fiber with it, and I try to do anything I can to make the accompanying food, which you guys might think of like as a healthy food or a fruit or a vegetable or protein source, I try to make that exciting in any way I can, and that really helps increase their acceptance of that food and make sure their snack isn't just sweet stuff. Okay, what if a dessert is served after a meal at a relative's house? Excellent question. If it's a relative that you feel comfortable talking with them about it, I would just ask them, hey, can we serve this within mealtime? For me, every time I've asked that, the answer has always been, oh yeah, sure, it's fine. If you don't feel comfortable asking that, just have a discussion with your kiddo and let them know, hey, we serve sweets with our meal at home. We serve all the food together on the same plate at home, but at grandma's house, she serves the cake after. Sometimes when we go places, their rules around food are different. And that's just how it's gonna be. So that's an important lesson for our kiddos to learn, because the rules around sweets are not always gonna be the same everywhere we go. So I would try one of those approaches. And then when you say give them all they want, is there a limit? So I've talked a lot about this on my Instagram account, and I'm pretty sure I didn't already answer this. I hope I didn't, or else I'm sounding like a crazy person answering the same question twice. Try to do it unlimited as much as possible. I just really want to emphasize that, because that is so important in this mindset shift if you're trying to help your kid have a healthy relationship with sweets. You don't have to always do it, but do it as much as possible. And when sweets are limited, I try to use an external factor limiting the sweets. So for example, it's all gone, or we only made so much, rather than, oh, that's enough for today. Because if it's the limit you're putting on the sweets and saying, oh, that's enough for today, well, why? Why is that enough? Why is that enough of this food, but not of the broccoli? And then you're then elevating that sweet food onto a pedestal. So use an external limit, like the food is gone or we only made so much, but don't do that every time. As much as possible, try to serve unlimited amounts, because we want our kids to not be in a scarcity or restriction mindset, because those mindsets cause people, including children, but also adults, to seek more of that food and to engage in binge-like behaviors. So, all right. So let's see. Whoops. Let's see. My daughter always asks for a sweet, but I don't offer it in every meal. I say it's not part of the menu. How would you suggest dealing with that? I would suggest exactly like you said. So if my daughter says, I want cookies with dinner tonight, and that's not on the menu, I will tell her, hey, that's not on the menu, but that's a good idea. I love cookies too. Why don't we put it on the menu for lunch tomorrow? Or why don't we put it on the menu for breakfast? Or why don't we, you help me pick out the cookie you want next time we go to the grocery store? So I acknowledge, yes, that's a good idea. No, it's not happening tonight because that's not part of the menu, but here's what we can do about it in the future. So you're still showing them that you're willing to incorporate their ideas into your meal planning. Let's see. Okay, so other questions I've gotten is, what about at a birthday party or a holiday gathering where the sweets are limited or things are not being served like you would? So similar to a grandparent's house, when you go to a birthday party, especially if they're not someone that you know super well, things are going to be portioned differently, things are going to be served differently. In that situation, again, I would talk to your kiddo and tell them that rules are different in other people's houses, and that's okay. You don't have to eat what you don't want to eat. And I would make sure that no one is telling your child that they can only have dessert if they eat X, Y, and Z. But if someone portions something out and they say each child only gets one slice because the cake is so big, it is what it is. That's not going to make or break your child's relationship with food unless that's happening on a daily basis, which if it's a birthday party, it's probably not happening on a daily basis. What if I eat sweets and my partner doesn't, or vice versa? So in this situation, I would recommend talking to your partner and getting on the same page with them. I think it's really important for both adults in the household, or all the adults in the household, to be on the same page. And if that partner or you do not ever eat any sweets, think about why that is. And consider even just putting a small amount of that sweet on your plate, even if you're not eating it, just to show your child that that's the way that you're approaching sweets and you're in it together with them. I do encourage you to try to enjoy the sweets with your child every once in a while if possible, because you really want to show them that sweets are just like any other food. And if it's something you constantly avoid, even if you don't use the term bad, you can still send that message that you think that food is bad, unless there's some sort of allergy, in which case you'd have to explain that to your child for a different reason. What about soda? This is a really good question. So frankly, I don't serve my kids soda ever. And with that, I am running the risk that they will have an obsession with soda, or they will go overboard with soda when they're exposed to it elsewhere. But because the research is so sound on soda having a negative impact on health, I'm willing to take that risk. And that's just a pros and cons. You just got to weigh the pros and cons. I do not think that soda is so prevalent as just sweets in general in our society that it's something that she's going to get exposed to all the time. So I don't anticipate it being a huge problem. Will I give it to her when she's older and she goes to a birthday party, we go to a restaurant, she sees other people drinking it? Sure. But she's only 3, and so right now I don't see a need for soda in our life. So, okay, are these strategies effective in children with autism? Also an excellent question, and to that I will say they are absolutely effective for children with autism. However, I would not just give any child, including a child with autism, unlimited access to sweets without implementing all the other strategies that I talk about related to sweets or related to helping your child have more of a diet variety. Kiddos with autism often have sensory needs, so we need to implement other strategies to help them have a higher diet variety in addition to having a healthy view of sweets. It's not just give them unrestricted sweets and everything will be fine. There's other strategies that we have to offer too. Someone says how to stop sweets cravings without making it like a forbidden fruit or more tempting. So obviously this depends on the reason for the sweets cravings, but oftentimes the answer is serve it more. If it's like this forbidden fruit that is so exciting to your kids, that to me tells me that they have a restriction and scarcity mindset with sweets and they need to be exposed to it more. Okay, what about children with type 2 diabetes? Also an excellent question. So this is a complicated answer. I do think that these strategies work for kids with type 2 diabetes, but I don't think that they work in isolation. You have to implement all of the strategies that I talk about how to help kids have a greater diet variety, how to help them enjoy vegetables, how to help them enjoy movement and have a healthy relationship with food, in addition to the strategies that I talk about with sweets. And then also consider, is it like from a perspective of a dietitian physician, like a medical perspective, is it worth it to avoid medication using restriction of sweets, causing unhealthy eating behaviors that will persist into adulthood? Or is it worth it to work with a doctor to use medication to help manage your child's diabetes while you are working on healthy behaviors and a healthy relationship with food? And then once that is sound, weaning off the medication under a doctor's supervision with a healthy relationship with food to support that journey. That's up to you as the parent to decide. I can't tell you what the right and wrong decision is. It's an individual decision for every family. So, Molly, you're asking, we offer fruit after dinner that the kids eat on the porch. It's not contingent on what they ate at dinner. Is this making it too special? It's a break for us. No, this is a really fun tradition. I think there's a fine line between feeling like you're making something special and like using it as a reward or using it as a tool to get a certain behavior. So it sounds like to me that your kiddos are enjoying this as an experience, like sitting out on the porch, enjoying fruit together as a family. Maybe you're watching the sunset. Maybe you're watching other kids like scooter and ride bikes. Maybe you're playing a game. Maybe you're listening to music. Like that's an experience. That's a family memory that you guys are having. And that sounds amazing. It's not just about the food in that situation. It's also about the experience. I have a post, if you scroll a little while back, about when my daughter chose ice cream as her reward. But we made it into an experience. We didn't just give her ice cream, like dad took her out for ice cream and she had a special daddy date. And so the reward wasn't the ice cream itself. The reward was the experience, and it happened to include food too. Okay, so I see another question here. On movie nights, my daughter gets a treat tray. Can you suggest a better name for that? Maybe I would call it like movie food. I don't know. Do you need a name for it? I don't know what I would think of that. I'm not like super creative when it comes to fun stuff like that. Maybe I'll ask in my Instagram stories and I'll give you some ideas. Okay, and the last question I want to address here is, what if I try all of this and it doesn't work? So this is going to be a tough love moment. In my experience, every time I have chatted with someone over DMs or in person, or they've been a client of mine, usually the answer is they haven't been implementing it long enough. they're not being consistent enough, or there's things that we're missing and they're not actually implementing all the strategies. So an example of this would be, we've done this for a week and my daughter is still sweets obsessed. Or I'm offering sweets on a regular basis, but I limit to one serving. Or another example, a tough one, which I don't have a perfect solution for, but it happens nonetheless, is I implement these strategies at my home, but I'm divorced and my ex-partner doesn't implement those strategies. These are all scenarios where there are pieces of the puzzle missing, which may be contributing to your child not having as much progress as you wanted. So, but I will end this with a positive note, because that is not so positive. I want to end here by saying you're here, so you're doing the hard work. And this is a long game, but it's important. And the fact that we're working on this is helping our future children to have, or our children to have, healthy relationships with food and grow into adults who don't succumb to all these tricks of diet culture, who can then raise their own children with healthy relationships with food from the get-go. We are breaking the cycle, and I just think that is so amazing. This stuff is so powerful. We together, raising this next generation of kiddos to love and nourish their bodies, it is literally changing the world. And I just want you to take a moment and pat yourself on the back, because I think you're amazing. I think you're doing an amazing job. And hopefully this video was helpful. Please stay tuned for more content. Make sure to subscribe to YouTube and the podcast, and share this account with your friends. Remember, all the content that I am sharing is always free and will be free. And the way that I can help more people is to reach more people, and you can help me do that by sharing. So hope you have a fabulous day, and I will see you on Instagram. I know I was kind of looking down at my phone the whole time, but I still want to share this here on YouTube, because all of these questions are really common questions I get a lot. I think these answers are really important and helpful to parents. So please make sure to subscribe to the channel for more feeding content, for more content about sweets, healthy relationships with food. Share your questions below, pop on over to my Instagram DMs, let me know that you watched this video, and stay tuned for more.